Welcome to Bizarre Podcast.
Hello guys and welcome back to Bizarre Podcast. Now, as you know, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and the past few nights I've been brainstorming on what to buy my wife for Valentine's Day. She's not an easy person to buy for, believe me, and we've been going out now for 20 years, we've been married for 10. It's getting harder to buy for her, especially when she doesn't tell me what she wants. So the other night, I was brainstorming, I was trying to think, what can I get her for Valentine's Day? And then I started thinking, where did Valentine's Day come from? Where did it all begin? And believe it or not, it's actually got quite a dark origin story for something associated with love and romance. And I thought, you know what, this will be a perfect episode for the podcast. And so that is the topic of today's episode, the dark origin of Valentine's Day. So, without further ado, I suppose we better get started because, in all honesty, I gave up looking for a Valentine's Day present and I'm going to have to get back to that pretty soon because it's sneaking up on us quite fast. Valentine's Day is a celebration of love and romance that is celebrated all around the world in most countries. But the romantic holiday was not always as we experienced it today. It has a dark history involving pagan rituals and beatings and even decapitation. And so let's delve a little deeper into the dark origin stories of Valentine's Day and how it has begun to be celebrated today. It is actually difficult to pinpoint the origin of Valentine's Day to one particular time in history. However, when doing my research, it would seem that the possibility that it originated in Rome is a big one. In ancient Rome, from the 13th of February to the 15th of February, the ancient Romans celebrated a very early version of Valentine's Day called Lupercalia, or otherwise known as the Feast of Lupercalia. Now, the Feast of Lupercalia was like a pagan ritual, but what exactly did it entail? Well, let me tell you, the Romans did not exchange loving Valentine's Day cards or gift each other chocolates. No, at the Feast of Lupercalia, the men and women would gather and drink. They would drink a lot and get naked. The men would sacrifice a goat and a dog, and when this grisly deed was done, the women would then line up and the men would actually hit the women with the hides of the slaughtered goats and dog. Now, after hearing that, you're probably asking yourself, why? I mean, what was the point of this ritual? And to tell you the truth, it was consensual. The women actually wanted to be hit with the hides of the animals. The reason behind this was that they believed that it would make them fertile. And so as soon as this part of the strange ritual was over, the women would write their names down and put the pieces of paper into a big lottery, and then the men would pick the women's names out of a hat, so to say, and then the man and the woman would be coupled up and they would spend the rest of the ritual very drunk and very naked, getting to know each other a little better, if you know what I mean. Well, after hearing that, you're probably thinking, what has that got to do with our Valentine's Day, the Valentine's Day that we celebrate today? And don't worry, it will all make sense by the end of the episode. So as we go on, around the year 269 AD, on February the 14th, a priest in ancient Rome was beheaded by the Emperor Claudius II. Here's why. So Claudius was trying his best to build Rome a strong army. The problem was, it seemed not a lot of men wanted to join this army. So Claudius came up with the conclusion that men didn't want to join because they were so devoted to their families, to the wife and children. And let me just say at this point, Claudius II's nickname has gone down in history as Claudius the Cruel. And you're going to see why now. Because of this belief that men wanted to stay with their wife and child and not join the army, Claudius decided to ban all marriages and engagements in Rome. And that's exactly what he did. And now you can probably see why he got the nickname Claudius the Cruel, because from what I've read about him, he wasn't a very nice man. Now, unfortunately, this didn't sit well with a certain priest. This priest was called Valentine. And Priest Valentine was not happy about this at all. He didn't think it was right to ban marriages. So he just wed young lovers in secret. And that's exactly what he did. If a young couple wanted to get married, they would go and see Saint Valentine and he would wed them in a secret location. Now, it's also said that during the service, Valentine would cut out heart shapes from parchment and give it to the young couple that he had just wed as a symbol of love. And this may be where we get the symbol of the love heart in our Valentine's Day cards. And it is also said that he wore an amethyst ring with a picture of Cupid on it, which, as you know, he's become like a little bit of a mascot for Valentine's Day. So that might also be connected. So, as we said, Priest Valentine was performing these marriages in secret for quite some time, until unfortunately he got caught by Claudius II, and Priest Valentine was sentenced to death and momentarily sent to prison. Now, it is said that in his time in prison, he befriended the jailer's daughter, who was blind, and he actually cured her by praying to God by using some kind of miracle, and he cured her blindness. And it is said that after that, the jailer's daughter and Valentine became quite good friends. And on the day of his execution, it is said that he wrote a letter or a card to her before he went off to be executed. And at the end of the letter, he signed it, "From your Valentine." And as you know, we still use this sentence in today's Valentine's Day cards. And then Valentine was executed by being clubbed to death and beheaded. So yeah, it's not a very romantic story to associate with Valentine's Day, but this is an important one to remember. Because as time went on, Valentine was remembered fondly for what he had done in the name of love, and eventually he was named a saint, Saint Valentine. And in AD 496, on February the 14th, Valentine's Day was established in honour of Saint Valentine. However, it is believed that it was only established by Pope Gelasius to take the place of the pagan holiday Lupercalia. You remember the ritual of sacrificing goats and dogs, and I said it would all make sense later? Well, this is where it starts making sense. Because it didn't quite fit in with new Christian beliefs, and they really wanted a new kind of holiday to celebrate. Not one where they slaughter animals and whip women with the hides of those animals. And so from that day on, the 14th of February was remembered for the great deed that St. Valentine had done, instead of the pagan ritual, which in my book is a step up, and I'm sure you'll agree. It wasn't until the 14th century that Valentine's Day became associated with romance, and this was all down to a poet called Geoffrey Chaucer. And the poem in question was called The Parliament of Fowls. This poem is about a group of birds that gather together on the 14th of February to choose their mates for the year. Now, more and more authors started including the 14th of February into their writing, such as William Shakespeare, who mentions Valentine's Day in Hamlet. But it wasn't until the 18th century that Valentine's Day was finally seen as an occasion, and cards and such were slowly introduced into the public. By the 19th century, Valentine's Day cards were so popular they were being produced in factories. It wasn't until the invention of postage stamps in the 1840s that the sale of Valentine's Day cards really took off due to the reduction of the postal rates. This also made it possible to send a Valentine's Day card in secret. And then finally, in 1868, the British chocolate company Cadbury's created fancy boxes to hold their chocolates in. These boxes were in the shape of love hearts, and this quickly became associated, as you know, with Valentine's Day. Right up until today, where we literally spend millions every year on buying chocolates and jewellery and perfume just to tell that special someone in our lives that we love them very much. And I guess at heart, we're all just a bunch of old romantics. Have yourself a great, great Valentine's Day, and I'll see you next time. You take care of yourself. Bye bye.